So before we get into water, though, I'm personally curious as to how you became involved in LoRaWAN and with the LoRa technology. Can you just give us a little brief, just insight into how you stumbled upon LoRaWAN?
Start with me?
Yes.
Yeah. You mean the business or me personally? Or both?
Both. I'm just you all come from different diverse backgrounds,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
wondering like how you found it, how you're working, why you're working in this space, in
Yeah.
addition to, marketing strategy and
Sure.
COO, CTO duties that you have.
Yeah. So look, for me, change of career path years ago, decided to turn around, and I thought I've been in telecommunications for a very, very long time, and then I just decided I didn't want to build yet another internet connection, and I wanted to do something which was a little more interesting. And when I managed to fall over NNNCo and just sort of really launched into it, jumped into it. Now why does NNNCo exist? It exists completely for the Internet of Things. That business is driven solely by the Internet of Things, and that's primarily because our CEO, Rob Zagarella, saw a vision of changing and having an impact on local and global markets by actually having data-driven decisions, and he saw this probably 12 years ago, and he waited for the market to be ripe, and he started this business about seven years ago, and that's why NNNCo exists today.
Thank you. And do you have anything? How did you fall upon working?
Yeah, maybe I can actually fall, upon like the water. So I've been working for Viola Water in Australia, and I arrived in Australia. So I'm French. I arrived in Australia during the Millennium Drought. So as you can imagine, the levels of the dams were really low. There is no water. They were even talking about closing down some towns just because of no water, no drinking water for people. So yeah, I've been involved, in water since 2004. And I've also been working with Schneider Electric for power and water, and those are really industries where IoT is really helping with digital transformation, and IoT is also making LoRaWAN especially is making it really cost effective to get that vast amount of data at a very granular level. So that's how I started with IoT and NNNCo.
Thank you. And Massimo?
Personally, I always been involved in industrial automation. That's my background. And some years ago, I jumped on board at Arduino, supporting the expansion of the company to the industrial environment and professional applications. And I was actively promoting the extension of the capabilities of the company in the LoRa technology, because I found it really very interesting since the beginning. And that happened when I moved to Australia. So I'm based in Australia as well. As you may hear from my accent, I'm Italian. That's
Massimo actually gave it away before you spoke. But so we're here to speak about water and IoT. And Sophie, I'd love to start with you because you are, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, were primary architect of the white paper. And I would love to begin with, why did you pursue this white paper?
Yeah, so I think the Water White Paper initiative was launched by NNNCo to really leverage the LoRaWAN technology for the Australian New Zealand region, but also more broadly, to really share real use cases beyond the proof of concept, really real use cases about what is happening, and cities or water utilities who have really done things, and how to share that knowledge. Because there is a lot of to say about LoRaWAN and IoT, and we heard this morning from Stacy and also from AWS and Microsoft that IoT can be challenging, and there is a big effort to do, and I'm marketing, big effort to do in terms of education and raising awareness about what technology can do, what they can't do, and also getting everyone aware of how this technology can really help your specific problems. And sometimes, it helps you with problems you don't even know you have. So that's why the initiative, I think, came from Tony and Rob Zagarella about, we would like to have this joint white paper between the LoRa Alliance and NNNCo to actually share some examples from around the world about water use cases, what has been working, and how we can actually help water utilities and councils to make the right decision and really embark on that new technology, which is LoRaWAN.
And I'd love to speak about the challenges that you discovered. But the white paper focused on not only in your area, so Australia, New Zealand, but also other areas around the world. Share.
Look, I think it's globally. I think that's the point. One of the things that we are aware of, and this happens everywhere you go and you start talking to people about IoT in general, and then you talk about the use cases and so forth, you see their eyes go bigger and bigger and bigger as they realize, you mean I can do that? And that's not, and to Massimo's point before, we've been in measuring and monitoring for a very long time. But what we haven't been doing that is at the scale that's required to really make some proper decisions. And they couldn't do that because the ROI and the value proposition around actually installing, a fully blown industrial SCADA system to monitor, let's say, a pressure relief valve in a location is just prohibitive when compared with trying to do this thing at a more micro scale, which means you can get a proper analysis of how to actually take some proactive actions. So we did it because this is globally applicable, and we wanted to do it with LoRa Alliance because we could see that in Australia, there wasn't enough of a profile. The water utilities and councils and anyone involved in water didn't really understand how LoRaWAN actually is a superior technology to most of the other communications, if not all of the other communications technologies, to get this outcome. And they just were caught up in this world of the traditional way of thinking, and we wanted to break that cycle.
We've been talking a lot about mind shifting here today. So let's go back a bit. There's so many challenges with water. Can you state some of the top challenges that, from your opinion, we need to tackle? And then let's talk about solutions after that.
Yeah, I'll grab on that because I've been involved in the actual development of some of these things with the team. One of the big ones is leak detection. In almost all cases around the world, certainly in Australia, we have a very aging water reticulation system. There's a lot of pipes with joins, cracks, some old pottery, there's some new plastics installed, some well, some not so well in various locations, lots of variability across the entire network. And as a result, there are just many thousands of leaks, to stop. Now, in the case, and I'll use it in this tenure here, I'm not sure, because she would admit the Central Coast, we put in we've only got 5,000 so far and going to expand much greater. They have detected, since it's been in place in 18 months ago, they have detected 11,000 leaks across their water reticulation system. Now that is just water going straight, this precious resource just going straight into the ground, right? And not only is it terrible for the environment, it's also costing the council a lot. It's also costing the user a lot, because if the council bills the customer a certain amount of water usage, the customer says, well, there's no way I use that much water. It turns out that the leak is somewhere between the front door and the actual source of the water. In that particular case, the council has to then give a rebate. So there's a real commercial ROI for the council because they're getting all of the numbers wrong, and there's a real perception of inaccuracies. So leak detection, huge. Another one is you've got relief valves where these things equalize the water, equalize the pressure upstream and downstream from various piping systems. And if that pressure system is not correct, you'll blow taps at the far end, and literally. And that creates bad press, and it creates all sorts of bad things. Of course, flooding, stormwater systems, understanding the level of stormwater systems, so that within a stormwater system, so that you can actually predictably and proactively understand you're going to have a problem downstream as a result of a particular weather event. We're even doing some assessments now on measuring the rainfall up in the hinterlands, and then actually analysing that in comparison to the water, the stormwater flow right down there in the town, and you can actually join the dots and start to work out, we've got 25 minutes before we're going to have a flood in that location. And these are the very specific things that they've been working on. They're actually starting to get to better solutions around that.
Massimo, Sophie, do you have anything to add regarding challenges, in your opinion, that are at the forefront of water and IoT?
Maybe I can comment. If you are looking at the news in Australia at the moment, you have both the drought in certain parts of the country, and you have also floodings. So some of the cities have had flooding. Three towns they had floods since the beginning of this year. So this is actually really dramatic, and this is where we think that the price point and the ease of development and rollout and low cost of LoRaWAN can really help to detect and inform people ahead of time. I think in the comparison in pricing between the Scala system and the LoRaWAN device, we actually came to the conclusion that there is actually a tenfold difference in pricing. So rolling out the Scala system would cost 30,000 Australian dollars. So rolling out the LoRaWAN system would actually be $3,000. So it makes a big difference for councils or water utilities who don't really have so much water. And we can also integrate with an existing Scala system for water utilities. So it's actually something that is very complementary for LoRaWAN.
The dimension of the network is quite important as well. And the capabilities of LoRa technologies of having a wide coverage that was quite important in many different use cases. And there were some other technologies unsuccessfully used previously. And this because there wasn't a complete awareness about what LoRa technology can provide. And it was also a reason why we decided to have this white paper to cover a lack of knowledge in some way and to promote the adoption. And thanks to support of contributors like NNNCo, the active work of Sophie and Tony, and also Semtech was very active in supporting the preparation of the white paper. We reached the result of this document, 12 pages, well-documented use cases, promoting the benefits of the technology in the different applications related to the water management. And this definitely compensated the lack of the knowledge and provided information to the councils, to the other players in the market about what the technology can easily provide even better than other communication technologies, thanks to the characteristics it has.
The white paper is actually fascinating. I read it in preparation for our chat. Is it available? It's very well laid out, and it's not boring like some white papers. No offense to the boring white paper writers, but it's great. Is it obviously it's available? Where can people get it if they're interested in this subject?
Yeah, it is actually available on the LoRa Alliance website. So you type water white paper. It is also available on the nnenco.com.au website, along with 5 case studies. So what was really important for us is to document the 5 case studies. So we have one from Lyon, which has 3 million water smart meters rolled out with real proof points, return on investment, comparison between different technologies. And this is actually the long-lasting water use cases for LoRaWAN and the biggest one. We have IoT Ventures New Zealand, which is really doing the visualization platform to see within the water tanks for remote islands and remote communities how much water they have in the tanks, so that because we have water scarcity on those islands, we can actually measure how much water is still left. We have a Goanna Ag case study. I don't know if you want to mention a few words about Goanna Ag, but they are an Australian solution provider company working for cotton farming. Do you want to say a few words about that?
I think it came up in in one of our talks yesterday as well, where we've got a solutions provider partner called Go and Rag. They've rolled out with us in partnership about 80,000 square kilometres of LoRaWAN network across the cotton growing belt in South Wales and southern Queensland. And I can't think of the exact statistics at the moment, but the management of water and the benefit provided by targeted irrigation, by using LoRaWAN specifically to understand the movement of water, the level of moisture in the ground, the health of the plants, to know the farmer so that actually know when to actually irrigate, is saving a actually absolutely profound amount of water. And there's really significant, one, fines, and two, costs for farmers to actually use this water. And so there's both a commercial ROI and an environmental ROI. In that case, it's quite profound.
Tony, you mentioned that in the LoRaWAN technology is clearly the best to address these water issues. Did you consider other technologies, and can you just go into why you believe that? Yeah,
there's a number of reasons. So, there's all sorts of different methods. We're talking about here we've got satellite methods to get LoRaWAN. We've got remote power to get LoRaWAN, whether solar panel access, all these various different types of technologies that we can use. So one thing about LoRaWAN is it is so flexible. So you've got so many different flexible deployment methods, and that is imperative in the agricultural use case, particularly. And for water, you need a deeply penetrative coverage, because you're trying to get coverage in place where those pipes are, where those pits are, where the water meters are. And sometimes they're deep in buildings, sometimes they're deep underground, and you need to be able to get coverage in those locations. The coverage is only one element to it. The other element to it is the power consumption. And we all know this. We're all familiar with all the statements, the motherhood statements around power consumption, but it's real. It's a factor of up to 10 times more efficient than using other types of communications technologies. And as a result, your battery usage is much smaller. And if you can afford a slightly bigger battery, you can keep the device in the field for much longer. That means your cost of actually maintaining and monitoring those systems becomes far lower. And it's I know it seems obvious, but it's really profound, and we mustn't forget it when we're trying to talk to customers, when they're going, but why wouldn't I just use NBI, or why wouldn't I use it? And we're saying definitely use those technologies where you need real-time, low latency kind of performance. But if you need a really low total cost of ownership of a particular communication protocol over a period, LoRaWAN is the standout. There's no question.
And maybe you can just add one use case which is quite striking is putting LoRaWAN technology underneath the manhole covers. Those manhole covers that you have in all the cities around the world, which are really heavy, cast iron, very heavy. So the system is actually really clever. I don't know if you came up with it, but it's actually putting a LoRaWAN inside, below the cover, so that it can actually detect when the manhole is actually used because of storm water or heavy heavy floodings before it can actually damage people or damage assets around it. And that actually really is a testament to the very high penetrative power of LoRaWAN by getting the signal underwater and under that very heavy.
Yeah, I think that definitely long distance transmission range, low power consumption, and the deep penetration of the transmission are the winning point. And this strictly related to the fact that we don't need to read values very frequently. There are other applications in other verticals where we need a more higher sampling rate. But this is not the case for most of the use cases in the water industry. So LoRa technology is perfect here.
I totally agree with that, Massimo. And the addition to that, as Sophie is talking about, is the event-driven. So you've got the beauty of having pick your algorithm. So you've got your beauty of having a regular uplink profile, but then when you have an event, you need to have an actual outcome. You need to get an uplink so that you can work out what's going on in that location, which is what Sophie was talking about. So it gives you the best of both.
We just listened to you, Tony, in the cities panel. What is your hope for water and IoT in the next few years? If we could just sort of advance things, like, do we need to advance technology further, or do we need to change public opinion through an education campaign? What do you wish we could do quicker, and what result would you love to see happen faster?
Yeah, what I'd like to see happen much more quickly is an education process of the utilities, and I would like to see the utilities under pressure by the community and by the cities to say, you've got to do a better job. Because most, in Australia at least, we've got, it's different in different parts of the world, but in Australia we have typically fairly large utilities, and then there's a relatively small number of cities who are actually managing the water themselves, as in the case of Gold Coast City Council. And there's a number, I think there's 80 or 90 or something city councils around Australia that manage water, but all of the other water is managed by major utilities. And I would like to see more pressure on those major utilities through education to say, we want to know that you're doing something about water leaks because we want to make sure we're not wasting water. I think that I would like to see an increase in pressure around that from a market push and a market pull perspective. That means we've got to be educating people about the capability, that it's actually possible to make a difference with these things because they don't understand it. And then from a technology point of view, what I would really like is to see a real drive to specific devices, which are a high quality device with an aim at a longevity and the ability to be submersed, proper IP68 rating, proper commercial grade devices, which can be used in a way that has longevity in mind. And we really need those devices to be very targeted, not overblown, packaged appropriately, and ready to go for water. And what that will do is when you try and drive a water outcome, we're talking massive volumes. And we want massive volumes on our networks. We want massive, because that's where you get the granular level of monitoring you need. But to do that, you've got to have devices at a low enough cost and with longevity, that the city or the utility can actually invest in that process. And that I'd like to see a bit more focus of specific device manufacturers saying, I'm going to do this. And if I'm going to be really greedy and selfish, I want them to focus on making sure that it's applicable in the regions that also need it. There's a big push. Obviously, a lot of devices are available in North America and in European regions, but we struggle. We struggle getting devices certified and ready to go in our region. So I'd like to really get a push to say, come on, guys, let's make sure we think about AS923, which is really the Asian standard, and including Australia, we're on AS923. I'd like to see devices coming out and being certified in those areas. I'd really like to see that acceleration.
Well, the good thing is that adding LoRa capabilities to existing devices, it's no more difficult anymore. It's not difficult anymore because, as I'm fully involved in Arduino activities, and we have already worked on different projects where adding those capabilities to a device has been very efficient with a very quick time to market. So it's something that it's possible now, today.
We'd love to take some questions from the audience too. Does anyone have a question about water? Okay, then I'm curious about the working group and how, as a working group, you made this white paper happen. And can you tell us a little bit about the importance of having this task force?
Yeah, so the task force has been fully involved since the beginning in the white paper. Actually, the Australian-New Zealand task force is composed of a group of members having commercial activities or interests in the local market and aiming to promote the adoption of the LoRa technology. And we identified the need of having documentation related to the water industry, because other technologies, as I mentioned, were used and unsuccessfully used. They were unsuccessfully used because the different technical aspects not able to satisfy all the needs, and also the aspect mainly related to the fact that councils and other players, as I mentioned, were not fully aware about the availability of this technology and the possibility to satisfy all the technical aspects. So this group of members collaborated, and across all the different phases of the realization of the white paper, from the identification of the needs, the collection of the content, the definition of the format, and the task force has been also in some way the point of contact between the members and the other teams within the alliance. We created this 12 pages white paper. Actually, the full content is even longer. We had in some way to shorten
27 pages.
a big effort, but the fact is that as all the other regional task force, we've been very active, and this is the purpose of those task forces: collect the needs from the members, from the market, and transform those needs in actions so that they can be satisfied.
Thank you, Massimo.
Can I dive in there? Just want to
Yes,
dive
please,
in there and add a
Johnny.
little bit. I'm also super keen. These guys, these two particularly, are the drivers for the Australia Task Force. Part of one of my additional roles for the LoRa Alliance now is working in the Apac region, and I want everyone to spread the word, right? Please, people, come to some of these task force meetings, right? We want to encourage people to be involved. We don't want this to be the NNNCo and Arduino show. We want to actually have collaboration from right across the groups and across the region, and we really need input from the various players, so that we're not just making it up, that we're actually heading in the right direction. So these two are a major driver for the Australia Task Force. They're the ones collaborating all the time, and they're trying to bring in. So we really want to encourage that, and I want to make sure that we're talking to others within our region and encouraging them to join the LoRa Alliance, so that we can get more membership, more knowledge of the market, and make appropriate decisions. I think that's important.
Thank you. May I add just a couple of aspects? Well, Australia and New Zealand, it's important to us as well. And the other aspect is that the task force is not focused on a specific technical aspect. There are other work groups in the LoRa Alliance organization working on technical aspects or marketing activities, while the task force is focused on all the aspects. It is really a main point of contact between the members and all the other groups.
Yeah, and if I may add also, the beauty of working with the LoRa Alliance, and I have Brenna Campbell, who is here in the room, who's also been an integral part of the water white paper. It's really the access to all the different members, and really being able to reach out to customers, to device manufacturers, to IoT solution providers from all the world. And we appreciate that being in Australia, isolated, and we are a bit remote, and being able to just reach out to all those people, tap out on the leverage from the LoRa Alliance, from all those different people, is really something that this group is actually putting together, this collaboration, and being able to tap into that wider global ecosystem.
Well, thank you, Sophie, and Tony, and Massimo. Thank you so much, and I do encourage you to download the white paper if you're interested in this area. It's really great. Thank you for this wonderful panel. Coming right up, I'm having a fascinating conversation with Sandra Lopez, CMO at Microsoft, about diversity and inclusivity in product design. So please join us. And in just a couple of moments, we'll begin that conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you.